Tom O'Dwyer, Teagasc Moor Park, and I'm here at the Ploughing at the Teagasc Grassland Demo with Mike Egan, Teagasc researcher from Teagasc Moor Park. Mike, you've been talking earlier today about the grassland demonstration plot behind us, and my first question to you is around the application of fertiliser nitrogen. How much longer could you continue to apply fertiliser nitrogen on grassland, and what sort of a response would you expect?
Yeah, so thanks, Tom. So if we look at the deadline has been extended from the 15th of September to the 30th of September. So we're allowed to spray chemical fertiliser up until the 30th. If we look at typical nitrogen responses for normal September, it's about 15 to 20 kilos per kilo of nitrogen applied. However, this year, after the prolonged dry period and now getting the rain and higher soil temperatures than normal, we're getting a much higher response to chemical fertiliser. And what we're looking at is somewhere in the range of 25 to 35 kilos of grass growth per kilo of nitrogen. So we're still getting an economical return on spreading fertiliser, and the earlier we can do that in that 2-week period, the higher that response is going to be.
Okay, so thank you for that. And turning back behind us, we have a number of different grass plots, and over here in the far side of the plot, we have the highest cover, which you've said earlier is about 3,000 kilos of dry matter per hectare, ready to cut for silage. What do farmers need to do differently now if they have covers like that and they want to make quality silage?
Yeah, so we yielded that this morning, and it's 3.3 tonne. It's closed 47 days. They've got 90 units of nitrogen, so it's grown just over 100 kilos per day over that period. And what we're saying, it's not going to accumulate a huge amount of more herbage over the next coming weeks. So as soon as weather permits, the conditions this week are a little bit broken, but as soon as weather permits over the next 10 days or so, what our advice is to wait for a 2-day period, cut that grass with the mower, leave it down, try and get a day and a half to 2 days to wilt it down. The dry matter is quite low at the moment, and somewhere in the region of 14 to 16%. So we'll be looking at to get a wilt, to get that up into low to mid 20s before we go to ensil it. So you're looking at the weather, you're looking for a 2-day period of dry weather, and you're trying to leave it down, ted it out before you ensil it. If you don't get that wilt on it, it's going to be very hard to preserve it in the bale or in the pit.
Okay, and you'd be recommending, if it's looking like that over there, nice cover, 3,000 cover on at the moment, you'd be cutting it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so like if you go into October, it's going to be, the chances of getting a couple of dry days together is much more difficult. You have a shorter day length, and it's going to be harder to wilt it out. So that's why we're saying kind of the sooner rather than later. The quality is going to deteriorate the longer you leave it, but we're not going to get the bulk by leaving it on that extra week, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So the sooner the better. Sometime next week, in the next 10 days, as soon as you get a couple of days, take it out, bale it and bring it in, and apply fertiliser then so you can get another grazing off it before the end of the year.
Okay, and my final question to you then is in relation to this plot over here directly behind us. Again, you yielded it out earlier. It's about a cover of 2,000. Ideal for grazing at the moment, but I suppose given the weather conditions we're having at the moment, and particularly in certain parts of the country where ground conditions are actually getting a little sticky and testing, what's your advice for making best utilisation of that grass? You've gone to the trouble now of growing it. How do you make best use of it?
Yeah, so the first thing we want to do, we have grown the grass, we put a yield of 2,200 kilos on it. We are saying that it's ideal for grazing now, and it is, because we're trying to extend the grazing rotation, build up covers. That's the kind of covers we want to begin in, the kind of 17 to 2,000 kilos what we want to begin at the moment. Because the weather is kind of broken at the moment and soil conditions may get challenging in some parts, if we're trying to grow those, it's going to be much more difficult. So what we're saying is, rather than let them into the whole area, use your strip fences, back fences. It's going to protect the regrowth. It's going to not damage the ground, and you'll get maximum utilisation rather than walking a lot of it into the ground.
Okay.